very nice of him. He just gave me a little push there to let me know he was coming past.
As one of the most successful automotive shows in the world, it doesn't come as a surprise that the stars of Top Gear are also quite prolific on their own. One of the best examples of that is of Jeremy Clarkson, who hosted the show from 2002 to 2015 and was essential in taking the series to the top 5 of its genre with his vast knowledge and personality. Although no one denies Jeremy's talent as a host, he's also known for involving himself in scandals, some of which keep being brought up even several years after them taking place. Nonetheless, could one of these issues cause his exit from Top Gear? Or was it something he decided himself? What other projects has he been involved with? Stay here to know all about Jeremy Clarkson's whereabouts and the scandal which turned his career upside down. Despite his careers being about cars and speed, Jeremy hasn't been able to escape controversies and scandals. Nonetheless, while most of the issues he was involved with had no severe impact on his career, in 2015, he was dismissed by Top Gear's network BBC after punching producer Oysen Timon. Reportedly, Timon had told Clarkson he couldn't take one of his dinner requests, leading the host to insult and punch him. Clarkson's behavior was strongly rejected by the BBC, and besides suspending him from the show, they also took Top Gear off their programming schedule, effectively leaving the then-airing season cut before the finale. With the uncertainty about his future in the show, fans started an online petition for the BBC to reinstall Clarkson, gathering over 1 million signatures. Nonetheless, the petition fell on deaf ears, and the network ultimately fired Clarkson, though not without him paying $100,000 to Timon. Later in 2020, Clarkson's former Top Gear co-stars James May told the Daily Mail that at the time of his firing, Clarkson was strongly pressured by producers to keep ratings high, a situation which potentially led to his outbursts, though a BBC News report points out that the incident was the last straw for the network's executives, as Clarkson had been involved in other scandals. Despite the criticism over Jeremy Clarkson's firing, the BBC chose to keep going with Top Gear, though the show wasn't the same afterwards. As a sign of solidarity with Clarkson, host Richard Hammond, Andy Willman, and James May exited the show as well, leaving the network to hire new hosts and renew the show's format. From then on, several hosts were seen on Top Gear's stage, starting with British host Christopher Evans, who faced a severe drop in audience ratings and was criticized for apparently not getting along with Matt LeBlanc, who joined the show later on as a co-host, but had grown increasingly frustrated with his co-star's rudeness and frosty attitude towards the team, as reported by The Sun. Other personalities included in this new era of Top Gear were racer Sabina Schmitz, journalist Rory Reid and Chris Harris, and TV personality Eddie Jordan. The backlash faced by Evans resulted in his resignation in 2016 after only one season. He was followed by Jordan in 2018 and by LeBlanc and Reid in 2019. Later in 2020, Schmitz left the show as well, leaving Harris to co-host the show with newcomers Andrew Flintoff and Patty McGuinness, who joined in 2019. Following his firing from the BBC, Jeremy Clarkson's next project was The Grand Tour, hosted with his former Top Gear co-stars Richard Hammond, Andy Willman, and James May. The project was born right after the three hosts resigned from Top Gear and followed a format which switches between scenes of the stars exploring automotive themes to them interacting in a studio with a live audience. The Grand Tour. Jeremy's most memorable project in recent years is Clarkson's Farm, which premiered in 2021. Overall, Jeremy Clarkson's controversial personality and opinions has often gotten him into big trouble and caused a bit of an uproar. Long before being fired by the BBC in 2015, Jeremy already had issues with the network and Top Gear's production. Back in early 2006, when Top Gear had already changed from a young show to one of the most successful on its network, Jeremy didn't hold back from criticizing BBC's scheduling decisions, especially referring to their World Cup coverage as not leaving enough space for the sort of television program normal people might actually want to watch. He wrote in his Top Gear magazine column, in which he also described snooker-centered shows as billiards for poor people. While Jeremy's choice of words while referring to the network's decision raised eyebrows everywhere, his negative opinion about the show's production didn't improve as time passed. Right after he was fired by the BBC, Jeremy revealed that he'd been through a recent cancer scare, but that the demanding TV schedule didn't allow him to take care of his health. "I couldn't do that. We were in the middle of a Top Gear series and Top Gear always came first," he told The Guardian. While Jeremy Clarkson's career success is not to be ignored, his opinions on politics, religion, and social issues has caused huge controversies, often gaining him the disapproval of minorities, organizations, and the general public. Here are some of the most unforgettable incidents involving Jeremy. As was usual for Top Gear, Jeremy and his co-hosts referred to each other or described items and cars as gay as a joke. While the show's choice of humor might not have been to everyone's taste, these remarks were mostly overlooked, but at other times caused a backlash. One of those occasions took place in 2011 when Jeremy described a Jaguar XKRS in an episode of Top Gear. It's very fast and very, very loud, and then in the corners, it will get its tail out more readily than George Michael. These remarks were strongly disapproved by Michael himself, who took to Twitter to call Jeremy a pig-ugly homophobic. This incident wasn't the last time Jeremy was accused of homophobia, as in 2019 he described Jeeps as a gay icon of a car during an episode of The Grand Tour, annoying British singer Will Young, who described the attitude as pathetic, shaming, and bigoted. For his part, Jeremy denied being homophobic for enjoying watching lesbians on the internet, as he wrote in his column on The Sun. It's not every day that two controversial personalities come face to face. But in the case of Jeremy Clarkson and Piers Morgan, their scandalous confrontation was probably due to happen sooner or later. It all started in 2002, when Piers Morgan published photos of Jeremy with a woman who wasn't Frances Kane, his wife at the time. Apparently, Jeremy had asked Piers to refrain from publishing the photos, but the request was ignored by the then editor of the Mirror UK. A year after the incident, Piers and Jeremy recorded a TV ad for the British airliner Concorde. Their interaction resulted in Jeremy throwing a glass of water over the journalist. However, in 2004, their beef reached its peak when both men attended that year's British Press Awards, and Jeremy punched Piers in the face. As affirmed by Jeremy, he was calm and sober during the incident, but had become upset following Piers' unkind remarks about his wife, resulting in him repeatedly hitting Piers in the face. The waters have been calm between the pair for over a decade now, though. As admitted by Piers during a 2014 interview with The Sun, he and Jeremy had solved their issues after a drinking session. Throughout his career, Jeremy Clarkson has faced a huge backlash for his comments on minorities, especially when it comes to Muslims and women. Back in 2009, Top Gear was questioned for not having female hosts, to which Jeremy retaliated by claiming that the TV executives have got it into their heads that if one presenter on a show is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed heterosexual boy, the other must be a black Muslim lesbian. He wrote in Top Gear's magazine, describing the combination as chalk and cheese, while Top Gear's cast was cheese and cheese, and hence it confused executives. While some took Jeremy's comments with humor, others didn't appreciate the remarks. A year later, he also commented on how the traditional Muslim garment burqa didn't work at preventing men from looking at women on the streets. A woman in a full burqa crossing the road in front of me tripped over the pavement, went head over heels, and up it came, red G-string and stockings. He said in an episode of Top Gear. As soon as the next day, hundreds of complaints on the issue were sent to the BBC. Some of the most controversial Top Gear moments involved several remarks made by Jeremy and his co-stars about Mexican people. In a series of episodes aired in 2011, it all started when the presenters talked about the then newly released Mestretta MXT, a sports car designed entirely by the Mexican manufacturer of the same name. Well, the joke started with the presenters calling the auto the Tortilla. Later remarks about Mexican people's alleged laziness and unkind descriptions of the country's food weren't taken so lightly. The then Mexican ambassador to the UK, Eduardo Medina Mora, sent an open letter to the BBC in which he not only condemned the trio's comments directly at his country as xenophobic and offensive, but also requested an apology from Top Gear hosts. While the network issued an apology to the embassy, they argued that Top Gear's host humor was typically British. The comments were removed from the international airings of the series, though that didn't stop Jeremy from dressing as a stereotypical Mexican and making jokes about the incident in the panel show Have I Got News for You. Further remarks about Mexico and the Mestretta MXT were made by the presenters in following episodes of Top Gear. One of the most controversial moments in Jeremy Clarkson's career was his comments on the Netflix documentary Harry and Meghan, centered on the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and then released in late 2022. As he wrote in The Sun, he didn't like the docuseries in the least, and expressed his annoyance at Meghan Markle, pointing out how despairing it was that the show was considered cool by younger generations. Nonetheless, the most scandalous part was his confession of how he dreamed of the day when she is made to parade naked through the streets of every town in Britain, where the crowds chant "shame" and throw lumps of excrement at her. He wrote, his comments weren't taken lightly by anyone, and though he took to Twitter to apologize and claim he was referencing a Game of Thrones scene with his remark, that didn't stop the backlash coming his way. According to the BBC, over 20,000 complaints were sent to the British Office of Communications regarding Jeremy's comments, prompting an apology from The Sun as well. Following the huge backlash faced by Jeremy Clarkson for his comments on Harry and Meghan, his most recent show, Clarkson's Farm, is at risk of being cancelled. As reported by Variety in January 2023, the show will most likely end in 2024, as Amazon Prime Video is set to part ways with Clarkson. The platform also produces The Grand Tour, though the future of that show is also uncertain. All these issues bring back memories from when Jeremy was fired by the BBC in 2015. But will Jeremy find a way to return to the entertainment world after such a scandal? And the possible cancellation of his show once again? Only time will tell. Thank you for spending some time with us. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. We also handpick these videos, which we recommend you watch next. You can talk to us on all social medias or ask a question in the comments below. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you back tomorrow.